Certainly. Resources in project management refer to the essential assets required to complete a project. This includes human resources, equipment, materials, and technology. Effective resource management ensures these assets are allocated and utilized optimally to achieve project objectives within the constraints of time, budget, and scope. The goal is to align resources with project needs efficiently and flexibly, adapting to changes and challenges as they arise. Understanding resource management as a dynamic process can be particularly insightful, considering the interdependencies and constraints that shape project execution.
Yeah, thank you. So, three things occur to me straight away on resource management. The first thing is that I try to remember that resource management comes as a consequence of going for make when you're confronted with a make or buy decision. So there is always with enough budget, there's always the option of backing out and actually spending money rather than spending resource. And if you're working on high value stuff, then that can come into play. Second thing is that often I find that people somehow think that resource management is straightforward, and that it's just a simple matter of maths, if you like,
Those are important points. No worries. Let's pick it up from there. The make or buy decision is indeed fundamental, offering a strategic lever to either develop resources internally or outsource them. This flexibility can be a crucial factor in high-value projects, where investing in external resources might yield better returns than relying solely on internal capabilities. And yes, the misconception that resource management is straightforward often overlooks its inherent complexity. It's not just about numbers. It's about understanding the nuances of resource constraints, interdependencies, and the dynamic nature of project environments. Resource optimization is a complex dance of strategic planning, real-time adjustment, and foresight. Would you like to elaborate more on how you've navigated these aspects in your projects?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, it's useful as you say to remember that actually it's non-trivial. You can't just always. Sometimes you can just pop it in a sort of spreadsheet depending on the constraints, but often you can't. There are things like linear programming and sometimes even convex optimization that can come into play. But then there's another tendency that goes in the other direction, where before we were just talking about when it comes across as being too easy. There's also sometimes people bring it across as being too hard, and I think people aren't always aware of just how many. Given that it's a hard problem, there are actually quite a lot of computational algorithmic solutions for a lot of particular variations of the problem. So depending on the precise constraints, then certain algorithms can go a long way to actually discovering a solution, i.e. the solutions are often known for a particular class of problem. So I'm thinking of the, is it the RCPSP, the Resource Constrained Scheduling Problem, where people do competitions to come up with algorithms for exactly the classic project resource constrained scheduling problem. Is that the right acronym? And could you just sort of say something on which ones tend to be have an algorithmic solution and which ones don't?
Yes, you're spot on with RCPSP, the Resource Constrained Project Scheduling Problem. It's a classic problem in operations research and project management, focusing on scheduling project activities within resource limitations. Some variations of this problem can be addressed with algorithmic solutions, especially for specific constraints and smaller instances. For example, exact methods like branch and bound, or heuristic approaches like genetic algorithms and simulated annealing are often used to find near optimal solutions.
That's great. So could we just say something, if it's possible?
Problems become more tractable when they have certain characteristics, such as linear resource constraints, a limited number of resources, or when activities have well-defined
I think you got cut off there, but we got the gist.
precedence relationships. However, as project complexity grows, especially with nonlinear constraints. Sure. To summarize, RCPSP is a key challenge in project management, where you schedule activities with limited resources. Got it. So, in essence, the RCPSP is about scheduling project activities with limited resources. Some versions can be solved effectively using algorithms, especially when constraints are straightforward. However, as project complexity increases, finding solutions becomes more challenging, requiring more advanced techniques and sometimes bespoke approaches.
That's great. Yeah, you actually covered what I was interested in, where you've given some suggestions as to which ones are straightforward and which ones are less straightforward. Is it possible we could just close with, have you got any rules of thumb that you find useful for like small team resource programming? So let's say teams of 3, 4, 5, or 6. Have you got any sort of like rules of thumb that would that a project manager or a project controller might find useful on the fly?
Absolutely. Here are a few rules of thumb for small team resource management. 1. Prioritize tasks. Focus on high-impact tasks that align with project goals. Ensure critical tasks are resourced first. 2. Avoid over-allocation. Monitor team members' workload to prevent burnout. Use resource calendars to track availability. 3. Cross-train. Encourage skill development across the team. This increases flexibility in task assignments and coverage. Regular check-ins. Conduct frequent briefings to assess progress and reallocate resources if necessary. Leverage tools. Use project management software to visualize resource allocation and identify bottlenecks. For a small team, these practices help maintain a balanced workload and promote efficiency. How might these rules integrate with your existing project management strategies?
Yeah, it's a good question, but I think we're up on time. Thank you so much for sort of bringing that through, and we'll pick up on stakeholders another time.